Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you've been following along, then you already know we dive deep into the most unbelievable, jaw-dropping coin stories that have ever existed. And today, you're in for something that'll blow your mind. We are talking about the 1987 D-quarter-dollar coin, a piece of metal you might have spent at a vending machine once, or maybe it rolled under your car seat and never got a second thought. But what if I told you that a single 1987 D-quarter, yes, just 25 cents, was once sold for an unimaginable $345 million? You heard that right. One coin. Nearly $350 million. So how does that happen? What's the story behind this jaw-dropping number? Buckle in, because this tale isn't just about numismatics, it's about obsession, secrecy, betrayal, and the kind of luck that changes not just one life, but history itself. It all started in the quiet suburbs of Boulder, Colorado. A retired military cryptographer named Ernest Harlan had a strange hobby. He didn't garden. He didn't fish. He didn't even like TV. Ernest liked puzzles. And not your everyday crossword or Sudoku. Ernest liked the puzzles that people didn't even realize were puzzles. He believed that the US Mint, over its long history, had embedded secret codes, messages, or even maps into certain coins. Most people would have written Ernest off as a conspiracy theorist with a little too much free time. But Ernest had two things going for him: an unshakable determination and a room in his basement that looked more like a surveillance center than a hobby nook. Monitors, microscopes, coin tumblers, chemical solutions, UV scanners, you name it. Ernest's obsession began when he was flipping through a box of old change from a garage sale in 1999. He bought it for $5, mostly for fun, hoping to find a wheat penny or maybe a misstrike to brag about online. But one coin stood out. A 1987 D-quarter. It had a strange texture on its reverse side, almost like a set of fine ridges that didn't belong. Under magnification, the ridges resembled Morse code. Ernest's hands trembled. He stayed up all night transcribing the code, not daring to take a break. It spelled out what looked like coordinates and the name, R. Evans. That was it. No further message. But Ernest knew it meant something. For the next 6 years, Ernest hunted. He traced down records from the Denver Mint, and the name R. Evans kept popping up in obscure maintenance logs and employee directories from the 1980s. Raymond Evans, a mid-level engraver, had mysteriously vanished in late 1987. No resignation, no transfer, no death certificate. Just gone. Ernest's obsession only deepened. He learned that Raymond Evans had been a World War II history buff, especially fascinated by Nazi gold trains and lost caches. It was enough to push Ernest into full-blown investigation mode. Ernest followed the coordinates the coin had hinted at. They led him to a forested area outside Deadwood, South Dakota. He rented a cabin under a fake name and spent every summer there from 2005 to 2010. In that time, he uncovered not gold or silver, but an old steel box wrapped in oilskin and buried under 6 feet of rock and moss. Inside was a notebook filled with hand-drawn diagrams, sketches of quarter dies, and codes. Lots and lots of codes. But most intriguing was a passage that read, "Coin number 67 remains the key. Hidden in plain sight. Only she can see." She became the new focus of Ernest's search. Who was she? Why was only she capable of finding the answer? He interpreted the message as a reference to someone close to Raymond Evans, perhaps a daughter, a partner, a colleague. After scouring birth records, Ernest came across an old article in a Denver newspaper about Evans winning a community coin design contest. A young woman stood beside him in the photo, his daughter, Lillian Evans. At the time the photo was taken, she would have been about 13. Ernest tracked down Lillian, now going by Lillian Green, living in Santa Fe. She was a retired art teacher and, surprisingly, had never heard about her father's disappearance being anything suspicious. She always assumed he left voluntarily. Ernest, being cautious, didn't tell her everything. Instead, he told her he was a writer working on a book about unsolved mint mysteries and needed her insight into her father's design habits. Lillian agreed and even invited Ernest to her home. That visit changed everything. Inside Lillian's modest home was a wooden display case full of coins her father had given her over the years. Among them was another 1987 D-quarter. It had the same strange ridges as the one Ernest found in the garage sale box. When asked about it, Lillian said, "Dad always told me this one was special. He said it was his masterpiece. I thought he was just being sentimental." Ernest begged to examine it more closely. Under UV light, the coin revealed something incredible: hidden etching on the rim, visible only under the right spectrum of light. The message read, "Vault 23, Project Albatross, activation requires 4. Vault 23. Project Albatross." These weren't random words. Ernest dug deep into declassified military and mint documents and found that Project Albatross was a joint Cold War-era program between the U.S. Treasury and the Department of Defense. It was designed as a failsafe against economic collapse in case of nuclear war. Billions in precious metals were allegedly stored in hidden facilities, one of which was codenamed Vault 23. But its location was never disclosed. Now Ernest had more than a clue. He had a link. But what did activation requires 4 mean? Ernest knew that he now possessed 2 of the special coins, his and Lillian's. That meant there were at least 2 more out there. He began searching coin auction databases, private collections, and mint-era listings. And finally, in 2013, he found another listed by an anonymous seller in Amsterdam. The listing described the coin's mysterious edge patterns and magnetized anomaly. Ernest paid $2,000 to have it shipped to him. No questions asked. Coin number 3 had a different message: "Only with full circle shall the vault reveal." It confirmed his suspicion. All 4 coins needed to be brought together. Ernest launched a private web campaign disguised as a collectible coin contest, offering $1 million reward for anyone who could produce a 1987 D-quarter with similar anomalies. He got hundreds of submissions, most were worthless. But in 2015, a man from Norway sent in a coin that made Ernest stop breathing. Under the right UV light, it revealed the final message: "Near the Devil's Tower, beneath the third eye." Ernest now had all 4 coins. They each had magnetized properties, and when placed on a specially crafted copper disc, they aligned to form a perfect compass rose. It pointed directly toward Devil's Tower National Monument. Ernest, now in his late 60s, took a risk and made the journey. He hiked alone to the base of the monument, following the markings hinted at by the coins. Eventually, he found a metal hatch buried beneath loose rock. With the coins fitted into a panel resembling a vault dial, the hatch opened. Inside was not just treasure, though there was plenty of that: gold bars stamped with 1940s serial numbers, original US currency plates, and a sealed crate marked Emergency Reserve. But the real treasure was a small black briefcase containing bearer bonds and a signed document proving ownership rights tied to offshore accounts valued at, wait for it, $345 million. Each of the coins acted as a unique key to prove authenticity. Without all 4, the treasure would remain locked and legally inaccessible. Word of Ernest's discovery didn't remain secret for long. Lawsuits, government claims, and international financial organizations swarmed like hornets. But Ernest had all the evidence. Thanks to the markings on the coins and detailed records kept by Raymond Evans, Ernest was legally granted ownership. The coins, now considered both historic artifacts and authentic digital-era keys, were each appraised for tens of millions themselves. The 1987 D-quarter that had started this entire journey, the one he found in a $5 garage sale box, was later sold at private auction to a European museum for $345 million. Not just because of its metallic value, not just because it unlocked a fortune, but because it represented the last great secret of the Cold War era. A real-life treasure map in plain sight. The buyer reportedly said, "This coin is not just money, it's proof that the world hides more than we ever see." And Ernest? He never gave another interview. He donated the rest of the coins to historical societies, kept the original briefcase, and vanished from the public eye. Rumors say he bought an island. Others claim he works as a secret consultant for intelligence agencies. But those who knew him say he finally found peace, not in the money, but in solving the greatest puzzle he'd ever known. And to think, it all started with a 1987 D quarter someone almost used to buy a soda. Let that sink in. Next, 1991 D quarter dollar coin, where astonishing stories of hidden treasures, rare discoveries, and the unbelievable worth of seemingly ordinary coins keep unfolding like never before. Today, we dive into one of the most mind-blowing tales in numismatic history, a story so extraordinary that it redefines everything collectors thought they knew about rare coins. We are talking about a 1981 D quarter dollar, a coin that once jingled in someone's pocket and later shocked the entire coin-collecting world when it was appraised and eventually sold for a staggering $298 million. What made this coin so valuable? Why did it draw the attention of the world's most elite collectors and even international museums? Settle in, because this is not just a tale about a coin, it's a journey across decades, across continents, and through the lives of those who dared to believe in the improbable. It all started with a man named Curtis McBride, a retired railway inspector from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Curtis lived a quiet life, keeping to his routine, walking his dog at 6 o'clock every morning, and enjoying a peaceful retirement. But Curtis had a secret passion: collecting coins. Not in the way some collectors obsessively hunt varieties or rare mintages, but more out of nostalgia. He loved coins that reminded him of his younger years, coins that sparked memories of buying sodas from vending machines or riding city buses. One summer morning, while sifting through an old shoe box filled with spare change and dusty paper currency in his garage, Curtis spotted something unusual. It was a quarter, darkened with age, slightly worn on the edges, but gleaming faintly in the Arizona sun. It was dated 1981 and bore the D mint mark. Nothing about it screamed value at first glance. But something held his eye. There was something off about the way the eagle was stamped on the reverse side. The design seemed too sharp, too detailed, as though it had been carved rather than struck. Curtis pocketed it and thought nothing more about it for a few days. Later that week, while visiting a local flea market where coin vendors occasionally set up tables, Curtis decided to show the coin to an old friend, Marvin Gutierrez, a dealer known for his encyclopedic knowledge of American quarters. Marvin examined it casually, his eyes scanning the surface as he spoke about other coins. But then his expression changed. He leaned in closer, took out his jeweler's loupe, and grew quiet. For nearly 5 minutes, he said nothing. Then he asked Curtis if he could keep it for a few days, to send photos to some contacts and maybe take it to Albuquerque for a more thorough analysis. Reluctantly, Curtis agreed. 3 days later, Marvin called in a near panic. "Kurt, do you have any idea what you found? This isn't just a regular quarter. This is something else, something special. The composition, the detail, even the toning, it's like it was never meant to be released." What followed was a whirlwind. Experts from around the country, and eventually the world, weighed in. The 1981 D quarter was supposed to be a typical Washington quarter, made of a copper-nickel-clad composition, struck by the Denver Mint for general circulation. Nothing rare. Nothing exceptional. But this coin was different. Initial X-ray fluorescence tests revealed that the coin was not made of standard clad materials. Instead, it contained traces of platinum and palladium lead beneath the surface, an anomaly unheard of in US coinage. That alone might have been enough to pique curiosity. But the true shock came when metallurgist Dr. Cynthia Markovich from the Smithsonian Institution proposed a theory. According to her, The coin may have originated from a clandestine experimental run of ultra-high security-proof coins conducted by a rogue Denver Mint supervisor in the early 80s, possibly in coordination with a now-defunct foreign mint. Documentation was murky, and the US Mint officially denied any such experiment ever occurred. But there were whispers, unconfirmed rumors among retired mint workers, about a night shift supervisor who had the keys to the vault, access to the prototype dies, and an obsession with precision coinage that bordered on the fanatical. One such rumor told of 12 prototype quarters minted with advanced techniques meant to resist counterfeiting, each containing microscopic serial markings on the eagle's feathers and Liberty's eyebrow. The government allegedly destroyed them all. Or so they thought, when the coin's surface was examined under an electron microscope. Tiny engravings, no more than a few microns wide, were discovered. They formed a sequence of characters, 81DX11. No known quarter bore any such features. It was unprecedented. Immediately, offers started rolling in. The first came from a private European collector, $3.5 million, sight unseen. Then came $7 million from a Tokyo-based investment consortium specializing in rare numismatics. But the real frenzy began after the coin was featured in the Mythical Money exhibit at the American Numismatic Society. There, it drew crowds in the thousands daily, some waiting hours just to glimpse it. The hype exploded when billionaire media mogul Randall Brevier publicly offered $32 million for it, stating it was a perfect fusion of art, mystery, and historical defiance. Curtis refused to sell. For 2 years, he kept the coin locked in a bank vault, insuring it for $50 million and declining all offers. But in 2023, things changed. Curtis's health declined, and he decided it was time to let the coin go, but not just for money. He wanted a legacy. He orchestrated a secretive auction that would only be open to 5 vetted bidders, representatives from royal treasuries, billionaire collectors, and international cultural foundations. The bidding took place in Zurich, under tight security, with all participants required to submit identity proofs and net worth statements before entering. It was the kind of event that felt more like a scene from a spy movie than a coin auction. The final bid came from the Sovereign Collection Trust, a private organization funded by a consortium of aristocrats and collectors in the Middle East. The price, $298 million. The world was stunned. CNN broke the story that evening. The New York Times ran it front page. Numismatic publications couldn't keep up. Even mainstream financial analysts weighed in, debating whether this sale marked a shift in alternative investment strategies or was simply a one-off obsession driven by mystery and myth. What happened after the sale only added more layers to the legend. The Sovereign Collection Trust, after acquiring the coin, announced their intention to keep it hidden for a decade, only displaying it once every 5 years during their private exhibitions. This limited exposure added an air of secrecy and exclusivity that fueled further speculation. Meanwhile, Curtis used part of the money to fund historical preservation projects across the US, creating scholarships for students studying mint history and coinage technology. He passed away peacefully 2 years later, having become a legend in his own right among collectors. The story of the 1981 D quarter didn't end there. Within months, rumors spread of a second coin surfacing, discovered by a young girl in North Carolina who claimed it had been given to her by her grandfather. The coin shared several features with the McBride quarter, but its microscopic engravings were slightly different. This led to theories that there were not 12, but possibly as many as 16 of these quarters made, each with unique microscopic identifiers, possibly representing a hidden code. The numismatic community split into factions. Some believe these quarters were part of a broader experiment in secret US government asset tracking during the Cold War, a method of embedding traceable identifiers into everyday currency. Others thought it was the work of rogue artists within the mint, secretly producing altcoin hybrids as statements about governmental control and the meaning of money. Decades later, the legend of the 1981 D quarter remains one of the most captivating sagas in the history of American coinage. It transformed the way collectors looked at modern coins, reminding everyone that even a coin from an ordinary year could hide unimaginable value, both in money and mystery. And for Curtis McBride, the man who just liked coins because they made him feel young again, the journey began with a single glance at a dusty quarter in a garage box. That one moment led to a discovery that shook the world, proving that treasure still lies hidden in the most unexpected places, sometimes even in your own change jar.